Folks, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk Workshop, Monday, June 16th. Great to have all of our students and members live just joining us here in our room. Great to see Bill, Margaret, Joyce. Short time listen today, meaning like a little while ago, you're just a part of us, right? Joyce, just in our phase 1 class. Great to have you back. Great to have Phil, Margaret, Scott, got Roberto, Kathleen, Laureen here, and all of us just back on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works, popping up on the lower left here in just a bit. A little verklempt today, but there we go. Popping up lower left at Cyber Trading You. If you're new to our stream, new to our channel, new to our platform, just be a friend, tell a friend. Look to hit the follow or subscribe button down below. Look to also share the good word. Send it to your buddies, send it to your family, your friends, because what we do here is we teach you how to trade the big money, how to follow the big money, at least at that. So excited, starting to trip over my words. So let's get into the big move that we caught just a moment ago, the SRM trade. Things up over 500% right now, right? So let me ask our students here, Joyce, Brad, Steven, Gary, Wiz, all of our members just joining us right now. Did anyone have the chance to jump in on this just a moment ago? This was a nice runner, and it's easy to say, oh, it popped. Oh, you could have moved or could have gotten in. Fred got some. Kathleen got some. Cool. Nice. I mean, hey, and if it was a little too volatile for you, understandable. Also, today's a Monday. You know, we got a lot of things going on this week, actually. We got Juneteenth here on Thursday. Markets closed. We got the Fed meeting concluding, I think, on Wednesday. We're going to talk all about that here in just a bit. So stay tuned. We'll talk about the Fed. But I think that, hey, if you didn't jump in, it could just be because it's a Monday going into a holiday/Fed week. You want to be more laid back, more passive than aggressive. Lita jumping in. She got like 70 cents right there herself. Nice catch. So what we were just discussing in our class, the phase 1 stock course, which, by the way, I always like to show this whenever I'm in teacher mode here. If you're on social media, this is what we teach each and every month live. It's a rotating course schedule. So here we are for the month of June. We came off of a class just earlier, lesson number 9, core volume principles. We're going to talk all about level 3, the NASDAQ book viewer, coming up later on today. But in our previous class, we talked about volume total, and we're like, oh, certain stocks trading way more volume than what they normally do, right? Trade just earlier, Sun M, right? This stock trading over 100 million shares total on the day. That last one just before, the SRM, trading 157 million shares roughly. So normally these stocks do not continue. They don't make a great move after a certain point. They'll exhaust out, dump back down. If you were a part of my class earlier just before, which a number of us were, if you're a gold, platinum, or diamond level CTU student, you have access. What do we need to see in order for us to feel confident about this making the run that it made? This was sideways for a little while here, right? And normally reversal time's around 10:30. So around 10:30, 10:45, you can call these lower highs, right? Lower highs. Granted, it didn't really make a break of support, a lower low. But if you were just joining us in class, what do we need to see in order for us to even think about jumping back in on this thing, at least heading into the late morning, early afternoon? We're just talking about lower highs, right? Lower high. Well, what's the opposite of that? What are we looking for here, folks? Sam, Phil, we got Bill, Kathleen just joining us from earlier, Joyce. Sam says a breakthrough, a big level on the way up. That's always a good answer, I feel, for any of my questions here in this workshop that I do each week. I feel like that's always a good answer, and it's the perfect way to phrase it. So give Sam partial points there. A higher high, right? So that plays in part with a breakthrough, a big level on the way up. It does, right? That's probably the next step in it, really. But just simply from earlier, right? If we're looking at this stock go sideways and it's trading so much volume already here at 11 o'clock, 11:15, there could have been a thought for this to make a lower high, a drag back down, then a lower low. See you later, right? Just look at another trade that we had from earlier this morning, Stack, STAK. This thing ain't making higher highs. I mean, it made that one pop prior to 7:30 in the morning, let alone 8 o'clock in the morning. And then it just kept making lower highs, and that was it. Just take a look at Sun M just from earlier. We talked about this from the morning in our class. We're talking about the lower highs. Making lower highs, and it dragged all the way back down from when we started class. This was at $1.99, $2 a share. It's at $1.60 now. This thing's cooked. This thing's toast, burnt toast. Give me a second. I'm holding this mug like a caffeine fix in for right now. Sam says also needs to hold a strong support. Well, that's at the minimum after, right? Because much like Sam referred to it, let me just ask everyone else here, at least so we're on the same page. When a stock breaks over resistance, at the bare minimum, what are we looking for that resistance to flip into? Sam answered it just before. Now, if it just blows through resistance and flies, then game on, right? That's just as good. So that's basically what happens here on the SRM, where it built resistance, built out, and you can call it a Fausto flag. Built higher lows, and it kept pinning itself up at this resistance here. And the more times it keeps poking it, it's bound to make that big reaction, big move shortly after. In this case, right, this didn't need to come back to hold support. At the bare minimum, if it were to have pulled back, it needs to at least do that, get that part done, and then make the higher high. This just blew the roof off and just ran up. That's right. Advocate for the break through the big level on the way up, which is what Sam wrote just earlier there. Now, let's get to the chart here. Let's get to book map. Let's see where the real levels were. So for everyone else, because Sam's going to answer this head on, I'm sure he's been in our classes long enough. He knows. Let's ask, a lot of our newly enrolled students here, or just members here otherwise. I see Bob joining us today, Tim joining us today, Rob joining us, Sonia testing us out here in phase one. For a cheaper stock, nothing too expensive. We're not talking Palantir. We're not talking OKLO. For a cheaper stock like this, was from earlier, what common set of price levels are we more likely to focus on as icebergs, as key iceberg levels? Normally, what common set of price levels should we look to focus on for the open? Let's see, 50-cent dollar. Kathleen right now answering. Just highlight what they're saying right there. And then just delete that. Yeah, basically, pretty much, you're looking at 50-cent levels in dollars, right? That's just where point being is that I'm more focused on $6. I'm more focused on 5.50. I'm more focused on 6.50 here. So it's easy to say, okay, topped off at basically 6.50, came back down towards $5. You had the VWAP mixed in right there too. So $5 plus the VWAP acting as a good support just before, pushed back up to 6. Is playing pretty well off of these 50-cent levels and whole numbers. Like all of us are answering here. Fred, Uday, Bob, Leda, Joyce. Now, this is where, though, that's speculation. Thinking about 50-cent levels, whole number levels, that's one of the only things that we could be speculative about. It's one of the only things we could assume out there in the market without looking at this, without even seeing this. We should assume that. Now, when we have our eyes on this, at least here, this is even before we started our class. This is before 10:30 in the morning, right? So let me ask Steve, let me ask Charles, let me ask Ray and Chuck and Phil and some ladies in here now. So just before, I had Joyce just earlier. I had Ravina here joining us. I see Debbie, see Wendy here just before, Barbara, Claire, Russell, Dave, P, and all of us just otherwise. What stands out as an iceberg level specifically on this heat map? Specifically going from left to right, where do we have resistance more so than anything? Where do we have resistance here on this page? There we go. Charles, Rob, Fred, Laureen, Debbie, Margaret, Sam. Right at $6, right? So you got about 188,000 shares out there on the ask. It's sitting right there. It started to show up at 10 o'clock in the morning. Now, the longer it stays out there, the more that you trust it. This is huge size to begin, so you should just trust it to begin. 187,000, where your largest order up until that point was this. This is great support, a clean 100K. Well, hey, this is nearly double the size after a point, and the longer it's out there, that's where it becomes even stronger, more reliable of a level, something you should trust. All right, well, how about this? We're going to add 2 plus 2 together, get 4, right? So this is a level to begin with. Now, let's say if this gets broken through, this order here that gets put up on the sell side, if this order gets broken through, what color shows up on time and sales? What color shows up on time and sales when this order here gets broken through on the way up? Fred, Debbie, Dawn, green. Yeah, absolutely, green. Correct. And what would we nickname that as? What would we nickname the green as? What type of pressure are we seeing? Who's winning that battle? The buyers, right, Dawn and Debbie? Absolutely. Actually, a number of us that answered just before I just worked with last week in the coaching program. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Now, if that order gets broken through, the buyers are winning that battle. Well, I'd like to say, even though that order wasn't showing earlier, there wasn't as much, you know, volume at that price right away. For every time that it is poking that price, breaking over it, stabbing, nipping that price, there at least is some form of interest to start. So there has already been some points where this is testing six, breaking over six. There's likely green on time and sales at six. There's likely some pent up buying pressure here. All right. Well, two plus two. And it took a little bit. So I just tell you, there's probably a point here where I'd look to take an entry right here. If I wasn't in class and if I was looking to take this trade, there's probably one point here where it's right place, wrong time, right within the sequence, just within this sequence here. The first test of this, it should look to hold or maybe like false breakout. So pop, drop. Then coming up here, there is a point where I would look to become pretty interested in taking it, like looking to take the break over it. All right, well, hey, let me ask Roberto, Margaret, Uday, Barbara, all of us here. I know I just referenced it a moment ago. But if this is such a big level, then simply put, what are we getting shortly after it breaks above this price? What should we be getting at least shortly after? Of course, we're trying to look for a breakout, a move up, but simply a big move. We're looking for a big reaction, nothing tiny. Have that order get broken through here and have so much, smaller interest from prior. Well, this seems like a very good opportunity to try and look for this, breakout, and it just wasn't the right time. Right place, wrong time. It didn't flip this into support at the least. It broke below it. So, right place, wrong time. You jump in, you jump out probably within about 30 seconds to a minute. Now, what happens though afterwards? It still fights. It's trying. You have a little resistance popping up for a moment here. So, this is likely your better entry once it re-breaks higher, once it gets over six, over where this order was. But there's like one point where there's a nice false breakout. There could have been a great entry and wrong time. But otherwise, though, the more it still builds up, builds up, builds up, there's that better move. So it took a while, but simply put, for as much volume as this stock was trading, it could have completely went the other way. Most of these stocks do, right? I mean, just take a look at all the other stocks we had from the morning watch list today, from Friday last week. Most of these are just losers after a point. So the key is you got to make sure it's making a higher high. You got to make sure it's popping resistance here, right? It's the same thing with SBET. SBET now, even you could say trying to go back up, but even from earlier, this was during prime time hours, mind you. So it's not like during late morning, garbage time, early afternoon. This was prime time, but this needed to make a higher high because even from prior to this breakout here, this SBET, it got crushed. Some news came out where they dropped like 75% one day. We're not expecting a full recovery, really, I would say. I mean, if it makes one, great. But, this is likely to make a smaller, short squeeze type of move if we can get a break higher, if we can get a break above resistance. But it had a tough time doing it at first. So I had no interest on this stock unless if it were to break above 12. This was one of 3 trades I took today. I took a loss on All About You, looking for a break here and just didn't get it. I ended up jumping in on the SBET right off of 12.05, got out at 12.38, 12.39. Left some good money on the table, as you could see, obviously. But I was treating today like a Monday where it's just, summer Monday. You got the Fed meeting this week. You got Juneteenth Thursday. Markets are going to be closed. So I wasn't looking to try and swing and hit big. I could have on this one, I guess, made a hell of a move up, reversed right shortly after 10:30 in the morning. So there could have been a lot more ball to, play on this trade for myself. But a trade's a trade. A win's a win. So that was nice to still, take. And then the Sun M, I caught a nice little bounce on that just from before as we were calling it out from the mid morning, right off of like 182 up to $2. But that was pretty much it, at least, right? Now that's where otherwise. Let's go into a couple of other moves. John, my friend, right now we're not really focused as much on trading. I'll get you back here at least once we finish up Traders Talk. Roberto saying, once it broke 6, what should be a good stop loss? There we go. So Roberto was actually asking that earlier in our class. generally speaking. And I said to him, like, hey, shoot me a quick chat just as we do traders talk, and I'll answer that just regarding any of these stocks. So for SRM, let's just take a quick look. Once it broke higher here, you're asking, Roberto? Once it broke above resistance, $6, 620-ish here, right? So the key is this. You got to make sure it A, makes the big move shortly after. It's easy to say, it just does. So by the time it just breaks out and you jump in, it's easy to say, but in the first 30 seconds, you know that you're working with a winner, a runner. So you may even be like, oh, let me get out here coming up. I'm up $1 a share here on this. Let me just look to take a quick exit here. So you do want to think about where to set your stop, and especially once you jump in, right? Because it's easy to say it popped. It could have been a head fake. It could have been a false breakout right back down. So once you jump in, I know it pops right away afterwards, but that's where, at least here, I would look to set my stop likely right below this little consolidation, maybe below this low right here. That's all. That's all. Because if you're expecting a big move shortly after, then you better be getting something that's similar to this. I know it was like perfect immediately afterwards, but even if it just starts here, chops around a little bit, all right, well, that's the type of reaction that you want to start off on. I'm not waiting to have this chop around for 20 minutes, then it tanks, and then I have my stop set lower where it's just more unnecessary. If I'm expecting a certain reaction, let's see it sooner than later. And I'd rather have a more conservative stop, just keeping the higher lows. That's all. But how about the previous breaks over 6? Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Let's get into like the ugly there for a bit. I like doing that because, especially for students like Roberto who have had great conversations within the coaching program, I can't always have these conversations with everyone. Sometimes, listen, you gotta have your hand held a little bit more at first. And when I understand that you're going through class, the dialogue that you're bringing forth to us, it's only getting better and better, more detailed questions. You're talking about phase 2 material, like the opening prints, certain things. Like I'll be able to go into the ugly, the nitty gritty, the more like microscopic, and I'll just do it here for all of us. And I know for Roberto, I could always do that for him. Let's see. So breaks over 6. Let's just kind of use this sequence here. So by the time it breaks over 6, and this, I circled this as my potential entry, this would be a prospective entry just within the sequence here. Let's even use this to start. There's an iceberg here, though, so it's a little difficult to just try and jump in. But let's say if we do. Let's say if we just jump in here. You're expecting the blast over this order here because if 6 is still the larger level, then you should be getting big moves shortly after. Pretty quickly, I would probably look to set my stop right below this little area here. And just right away, it's not a winner. Even if you jump in later on, once it breaks over this seller here at 615, that means you have to set your stop a little bit deeper. I rather trust 6 as my level here at first because that's where the larger order initially was. So it's tougher for me to take the trade at a higher price at first because I'm risking more, right? So there's points of hesitation that I would have. At least I would look to try and jump in from 6 initially. That's where I'm telling you, like, I'd probably set my stop here, in and out pretty quick. And that's where I could tell you, if it's not blasting over this order and making that expected run that you would want to see, then it's not even a matter of setting the stop at like 580 or so here. But if it's not even holding over 6 as support, then I'm likely just hitting the close button as it's dragging down. I'm not waiting for my stop to take me out per se. But if it's not cleanly flipping 6 into support, resistance, nipping, testing. If it's not playing nice by those standards, then I have no problem just hitting the eject button, the close button. That's pretty much it. So I'll set my stop at a certain price. Now, Roberto, if this stock takes off and if this stock pops and makes a big fast run immediately here, then I'll look to move my stop up as the stock takes off. So as it makes a big move going up right away, there is like a mental point where I just say, okay, let me pull my stop, move it up higher. I'd probably move it to break even right away. Then the more it keeps going up, play it off your whole number level here. Then it's 7, then maybe 758. Easy to say that very quickly. But even right now, let's just look at Bookmap and see where we had resistance just a moment ago. Obviously, we were talking about this area here, but it blasted off, went into another dimension, another galaxy. So where do we have any at all resistance getting broken through? I'd say right here at 7, right here at $7. But after that, there's nothing. There's nothing that is as strong, nothing I'd feel as confident about. If the lines aren't as orange red as what we were just seeing here, even let alone at 650 and $7, comparing that to even what we had at 6, that's just where here there's not much I could rely on to just, oh, let me just jump in. The more that this builds out, at least from this point, looking at the volume here, like 9.15, $9, that would be something to focus on to make sure, okay, if it stays over that as support, then there's a chance for this to try and move higher. The more it breaks below that, then this is bound to make that further drop. So even let's just take a look because this is not in good shape now, it seems. Get some artwork out here. There we go. So does everyone see where I have these two lines for John, for Barbara, for all of our students here and members inside our trading room? Everyone see where I put these two lines right here? Just give me a quick little letter Y, just because I'm doing it right off that CVP. It's not like a notable spike. It's not anything that's triple the size, but at least it's the peak of this lump area here. And then I'm kind of using the bottom of this area for right now, right? All right. Well, just before it came into it and held over it, it came into it again. Technically, this is a higher low. There is a chance if this wants to try and make one more push, you got to hope and a prayer, but there's a chance still with that. So, if this wants to make one more move, it can. If this breaks below this here coming up one more time, the more it keeps stabbing it, poking it. Well, hey, let me just ask everyone here. For Jeff, Scott, Laureen, Debbie, great to see you, Ishan, just joining us right now. Perfect. Well, hey, for a lot of our students that have joined us already, you're probably more quick to answer this one. When a stock is poking support, nipping and breaking under support briefly, I know it's holding it, but what color is showing up on time and sales when a stock is dropping and testing support? The stock is dropping and testing support. Red, right? And what are we nicknaming the red as? What are we nicknaming it as, at least? That ain't no buying, right? That's selling. So this needs to make this better reaction going up if you're looking for an afternoon move, because it's already poked this a number of times. It's been strong enough to hold it here. The more it keeps testing it, there is nothing that is protecting it from dropping back down to 7. There's not really a giant order on the bid. There isn't anything that is 100,000 shares, 190,000 here. Hey, if there's 190,000 shares popping up on the bid here suddenly, I'll feel a bit better. But there's nothing that's respectable that's holding this up outside of the volume here that was built. So if it wants to go, it can. I just popped back up kind of nice here. If this reverses, though, and comes back down, I'll see a pretty quick drop back down to 7. If not 7, then perhaps just straight away to 6. You got the VWAP right above that. So this is where we tell you all the time, for stocks like SRM, you got to take it level by level. So, hey, this broke a higher high. This played nice. This did what we wanted it to do from class just earlier, phase 1. Well, let's just go back now. Let's go like the next step even. Let's actually just go the next step. What's the float on this stock? It's trading 173 milli today. What's the float? I bet you this stock has like a 5 million share float at most. Let's find out. I don't know the answer. I do not know. Let's definitely lower that at least. We'll find out. Price is Right rules. If you guess before it finishes up and the closest answer hits, then you win. So Price is Right here. Let's figure out. I'm gonna say 5 million. 5 million share float. I don't know the answer ahead of time here. I wish my scanner went faster, by the way. Bad radio here in between. All right, if you're joining us again on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works, just make sure to follow us right down below at CyberTradingU. That's our YouTube handle. We're at CyberTrading University on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. We don't dance for you there, but we're here to educate. But otherwise, let's see what this will pull up. I may need to go to Benzinga Pro to make this even faster. All right, Benzinga Pro gave me the answer. They said 13.5 million float. This thing is not finished up yet. What is going on here? This thing's taking its sweet time. Here we go. So TradeStation says 6.5 million share float. Meanwhile, Benzinga Pro says 13.5. I don't know the discrepancy there, but either way, this is a low float stock that you're just playing a big old game of musical chairs with here right now. How about this? Outside of just the 50-cent levels and dollar levels, outside of just saying those, think about US dollar bills, US currency, right? Excluding, don't be the wise guy here, wise guy, excluding the $2 bill. You got the $1 bill. What's the next dollar bill above the one, right? Five. And what's after five then? Answer that for me. 10, right? So think about your psychological levels here. Well, whole number levels like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I mean, those are normally big to begin with. $5 also could be a very strong level here, and it broke below it as support. It held it as resistance here. It broke above it as resistance here, and that, hey, in theory, that could have made for a great move. Once this broke through this big level here at $5, on the way back up here, hey, nice sweet spot. Made a pretty good reaction to begin, right? So that's easy to say, but that's what we focus on in class. So $1, $5. After that, 10. And levels aren't meant to hold perfectly all the time, every time. I like to say this because it's true. If that was the case, you and I would not have a need to be here. And I'm not even talking about us inside our live trading room because it's great to trade as a community. But if you're on social media poking around on a Monday, at 12:30 and tuning in here to me, hey, if trading was so easy, you wouldn't have a need to be on here, and I wouldn't have a need to be on here spewing. So that's just what happened. Well, it did pop and drop 10 right away. Then it popped it. Maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance for this to try and go and run. But much like we talked about before, Sam brought it up at the bare minimum, baseline minimum. This would need to hold as support. It did not. It did not. So when it breaks below this as support here and it tanks, what are we expecting support to become once more? Resistance. So $10 is still holding really tight as resistance. It broke above it once, had one good reaction off of it. So yeah, there's some potential buying interest to start. Maybe the more it keeps pressing it, poking it throughout the day, there's a better chance for it to make that higher high. But if it can't hold itself here and try and hold over where we had the big volume, you tell me. If it's not moving over 10, then it's probably breaking under this. And as we just said before, if there's nothing holding this above this area here, then we're probably dropping a lot lower, down to like $7 maybe, otherwise even 6 or the VWAP in between. So you got to make sure you keep seeing higher lows build out, but this is pretty risky as it drags back down one more time. All right, folks. So let's go into another topic, at least here. Give me a quick moment. Give me a quick moment. Give me a quick moment. Bad radio. There we go. All right. So let's talk about what's coming out later this week, which is, of course, not just the Fed meeting and Powell and the potential of the Fed lowering the interest rates about damn time, but it's also a question of how much longer does Powell have? I mean that because there was talks immediately from when Trump won the White House and took over again as president that, oh, we're going to find a replacement for Powell soon enough whenever his term runs out. Who's going to replace him? There were talks even last week about Scott Bessent being one of the candidates or a potential candidate at that. He's very bullish. The market reacts well when he talks. So what would happen if Powell gets replaced? What are some of the better sectors to watch when that happens, if that happens sooner than later? Can you imagine if the Fed leaves the rates unchanged coming up this Wednesday? I mean, I think it's very well priced in, or a matter of that, just to say, I think that a lot of people are expecting the Fed to finally lower the rate because they were expecting it lowered last Fed meeting. They were expecting it from the meeting before that, right? Can you imagine the smell within the market if Powell decides, one more time, unchanged? Oh my God. There would be, I think, big sell off because there's disappointment. However, that would only agitate Trump even more, right? If he leaves the rates unchanged even further. There's enough going on with Israel, Iran. There's people talking about Trump trying to get us into that. We're not talking about that here. But now to have Powell trying to go against him one more time, if he were to leave the rates unchanged, Trump would have a fit. He would be all over his Truth Social. And I don't even know what nickname he'd come up with for Jerome Powell. But this is just where otherwise, at least, how would replacing Powell affect the stock market? I hope that we lower the rates. Obviously, I believe that we will. I think that there's like a 94% chance of the rates being lower this Fed meeting coming up on Wednesday. But what would happen at least if Powell gets replaced? I think the rates would get lowered more and sooner first. So if there were to be someone like Besant or anyone else that would be more bullish for the market, they would do what Trump would want done sooner. So, lowering the rates, at least with that, stimulus measures, maybe quantitative easing, where they start printing money again. That's something I personally was telling our students about going into the last Fed meeting. I thought that there would be the end of, I think there would be an end as far as the tightening with the money. There would be a lot more promise to try and print new money into the market. So that means quantitative easing, injecting money. Now, otherwise, though, different sectors to keep a good eye on: real estate, utilities, financials. And the one that I wasn't as familiar with, at least if there were better real estate companies, real estate stocks to keep a good eye on, yes and no. I mean, a little bit here and there. So give me a quick moment. So for real estate, give me a quick second. We'll start off on consumer discretionary select tickers. So stocks like Amazon, Tesla, Home Depot, your big brand stocks, McDonald's, Nike, a lot of those larger, well-known blue chip stocks are the ones that will benefit pretty well to begin with. I mean, of course, we talked about this from last Traders Talk 1 week ago. A swing trade is first determined by trend. So for certain swing trades that we've called out recently, I mean, Palantir, easy to say, but it's been moving up perfectly. But it broke a higher high here. That's what led it to become a better trade again. Stocks like OKLO. So as long as the chart's showing higher low, higher high, that's one of the first things to focus on, at least with consumer discretionary. But otherwise, for real estate stocks, uh, what's an interesting one to begin with? This one is not one that you'd want to focus on because it's like a crappy chart, bad company. But what about Douglas Elliman? I feel like Douglas Elliman, for as much real estate as they own in New York City and Manhattan of all things, it would be funny to see this make a good squeeze up over time. They had an IPO last year, or I'm sorry, a few years ago, rather it was, but they tanked and they have not been doing well, making lower lows over time. Maybe this could be the beginning of something. So if Powell gets replaced sooner than later, who knows? Maybe certain real estate investment companies and companies like Douglas Elliman. There's actually a nice resistance here. This could be something to keep an eye on. What the hell? This just popped out of left field here. This is like a nice swing trade setup right now. Look at this. If we could break out of this consolidation, break out of this resistance here over time, $3.18 a share. Let me just take a quick look on the float. I don't think this is a low float one as much. Yeah, it's about 83 million shares in the float. It could be higher, could be a hell of a lot lower. Real estate management and development company. So that could be something maybe to keep an eye on. It hasn't been for a long time, but who knows if there's a more bullish Fed chair that steps in and the real estate market as a whole makes a big pop. I'm going to make sure I remind myself of this. This is just a clean looking level. Volume came in from the other week, about a month ago. Definitely something to keep an eye on there. That's nice. So that's not making higher highs yet, but there is a good chance for that too. What else do we have? We have O, which is Realty Income Corp. Nice chart as far as the higher lows go, at least. It's just been in consolidation for a little while. I'm just going to do by intraday volume, just the ones that trade the most volume here. PLD, Prologis Inc. Lower highs. I'm not a fan of that as much. So this one, not as great just yet. Kind of holding support, but the chart could be better. Same here. I mean, lower highs after a big fall off back from the end of 21 into 22. American Tower Corp, AMT. at least a better case of higher lows here, but still, a lot of these for right now seem to just be in strict consolidation, and not all of them trade good volume. So this will tie me back to a question that was sent in actually from earlier this morning regarding another sector. But as far as like if you're focused on a sector-based play, like here we are with the thought of Powell being replaced by a more bullish Fed chair. Okay, utilities. Okay, consumer discretionary, okay, real estate stocks. There are certain sectors that may do well, but not all of them are going to have good volume. Like this one, PSA, public storage. It's trading 328,000 shares total on the day. That's not something that we at CTU here would normally advocate to call out or trade, price aside. So not all of these have good volume. That's the issue. Now, the Douglas trade, Douglas Elliman, is pretty shitty volume today, about 188,000 total today. As far as the chart goes, though, you tell me, this looks like a better case of higher lows, but a potential higher high here compared to all the other real estate companies, at least. So that is one Douglas that we can keep an eye on. Now, the financial sector, you know that obviously JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs. None of those are going to be like an out of the box type of play. I mean, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, I should say to begin, just beautiful move up just with the market over time. JP Morgan, very similar. All of these are going to have a very similar graph. The question is, are they making higher highs or not yet? Citigroup got crushed back from 2008. Looks like there's a better case for Citigroup over time to try and bust a higher high back from 2018, 2020. Has to likely make a move over 83 bucks, hold that as support. Wells Fargo looking pretty good. Wells Fargo, not a bad chart. JP Morgan, obviously a great chart. Bank of America doing a lot better than Citigroup is, coming off 28 crisis, but not really at that all-time high, just yet. Goldman Sachs obviously doing pretty good. So all of these are different sectors I would just keep an eye on. A lot of them are kind of no-brainers, like the financial sector. Okay. The consumer discretionary, like your name brand blue chip stocks. Okay, that makes sense. Now for real estate, the one that, again, is like an interesting swing trade opportunity. I don't want to say this is a great investment to just put your money into for 12 months, 24 months and just hold. But listen, if you're looking at a chart and you're like, okay, where's resistance? This looks pretty good. So see what happens here around this 316-ish, 318-ish price on Douglas Elliman over the coming weeks and months ahead. All right. Sam here in our chat says if he lowers it now in 3 months when tariffs hit, he will have to raise. Jobs are holding okay. Chair of Fed is not the only one. There are a bunch of regional Fed chairs and the board. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You got all these different regional ones. Michigan office, I think. Michigan consumer sentiment and the chair from there. There's like a Texas one, a New York one, obviously. But, with as many talking heads as there are within the whole market there, Sam, right? Like not even the Fed shares. You got the Bessents of the world, the Lutnicks of the world, obviously Trump. But that's where you just got to keep your eye out there on the whole market. So when the Fed decision is reached, it's not even the decision, but about 30 minutes after the decision is reached, it'll be at 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Powell's going to give his remarks. So you're going to have a reaction off the headline that comes out. Are the rates lowered, unchanged, etc.? But then at 2:30 Eastern, Powell's going to give you a lot of context as far as why he did what he did, why the other Fed chairs may have agreed, disagreed, etc. So Wednesday normally would be a very volatile day. This week normally would be a damn volatile week. You get these holidays that come into play though, right? So, you've heard me bitch and moan about this with like Christmas and Hanukkah. Hey, I'm a festive guy. Josh, the human being, I love holidays. I love an extra day off. You know what I mean? And get to go to the beach. I'm a big fan of that. Just, Father's Day, Mother's Day. I love holidays. When we have a day off in the market, though, it messes the market up. It doesn't matter what holiday it is, whether it's 4th of July, Christmas, here coming up Juneteenth. So it's also on a Thursday, which spikes things even worse because Fausto mentioned earlier, you're getting all these people that are taking off early because, especially in the Northeast, as you know, New York, let alone Connecticut, etc. If you're just in the Northeast, it's supposed to be really nice out. So we've had like every weekend so far in the Northeast be like crap weather, rain, cold, overcast. You get the Thursday day off, and then you're likely to just say, the hell with it. I'm just going to make it a 4-day weekend. That's what a lot of the big wigs would look to do. So that's where, at least for us as day traders, it doesn't make things as enticing. It makes things a lot more slow, not as much market volatility to work with. So that is the reason why things may be a little wonky, even with the Fed announcement coming up this week. All right. Uh, Bill says, Josh, I just love how much you love Powell. Doesn't everybody, Bill? Doesn't everyone love that guy? Main event Jerome Powell makes the whole thing about him, right? Sam says, also, if the government is expelling illegal workers and the Fed cuts rates, there are no workers, so you get big inflation due to shortage of foods and goods. One step at a time, Sam. One step at a time. Let's focus on Wednesday first. If the rates do get lowered, or if Powell wants to stick it to Trump one more time here, but things will be interesting, at least come Wednesday afternoon. Now, let's see. It's 12:46 right now. We went over that SRM trade. Let's just take a look once again to see where that's at now. Yeah, still just kind of holding. So it didn't break lower, right? But it's not breaking higher just yet either. So still kind of in inception, kind of in limbo right now. Um, all right. So we talked a little bit about the Powell situation. We talked a little bit about the SRM from just earlier here. I'll go into one of the stocks I traded from earlier today. It was the UUUU. Speaking about you, all about you, right? Uranium. So it was a loser. Just want to show why a trade doesn't work out to what we want it to do, what we want it to be. So with a lot of news that came out over the weekend with Israel, Iran, and potentially Iran and their uranium agreement, something even in the last 18 hours came out, right? I'm not the most informed, but at least I keep my ear a little bit to the floor, and I know what's going on a small bit. Now, that trickled into the market because a lot of the uranium stocks were up a good amount in pre-market, gapped up, and listen, this chart's a little spotty, a little flat here a little bit, but if you were to answer here, what's the trend of this stock going into the market open, I wouldn't be saying down. You know what I mean? Like, what's the trend of this stock from 8 o'clock to 9:30? Just, I wouldn't say down, right? I'm not saying it's screaming up, but I'm not saying this is down. So it's up overnight. That's where I'm at least hinting towards, okay, there could be buying pressure. Maybe there's more buying pressure ahead here this morning on UUUU, on the other uranium trades, UEC, which did pop at the open. This was inching up a little bit here again in pre-market. So again, what's the trend of this stock from 8 o'clock to 9:30? You can't tell me it's down. You can't tell me, oh, it's tanking, oh, it's dropping. So I thought that there was a chance that we would get more buying pressure on the uranium trades by the time the market did open after the first 5 or so minutes. So, for the UUUU, this one I chose because it was made a good pop to begin. It broke over a little, I guess you'll call it resistance. I'm not even like a little high here, I guess. Well, the goal is to at least try and see that hold as support, like right kind of here, and then the pop back up shortly after. We got just that to begin. Things were awesome on this trade to start. It was right off of 604, 605. So great entry to begin on this U trade, all about you. But where the markets grinded and continued to move up, this did not. It ended up starting off great where it popped up about 20 cents. Is that a big move shortly after? Well, it's on the right track. I wouldn't say 20 cents for a $6 stock is like what I'm ultimately trying to achieve. It's not like the best thing on God's green that I've ever seen. It's not a tiny move. 20 cents here instantly is not tiny. But if you're asking, oh, why didn't you get out? Well, it's 9:38 in the morning. What time's reversal time again, everyone? Bill, Margaret, Kathleen, all of our students here inside our trading room. 10:30. So, hey, when this pops here, why would we not look for more? Why would we not look to say, all right, well, as long as we get higher lows, we get a higher high, right? Uranium's in the news. Uranium's affiliated with nuclear energy, let alone nuclear weapons. So as much as we're talking about Iran and like, their nuclear capability, uranium's been tied to nuclear energy for a long while. They've been great swing trades. So it's in the news for good reasons, alongside the war reasons. But otherwise, here there's only good reasons to try and stay in this trade here. It's after the first 5 minutes. It made a good reaction to start. Okay, well, where's our levels? Where's our levels on this trade? Well, I'll tell you what, this thing sucks. This thing looks like an awful looking heat map. That's where this makes it very difficult to trust any of these stocks when you don't really see a clear, concise orange line going across the page. So I'm not trying to toss a curveball at you here. There isn't really anything that I would trust as much. I mean, you could look at this here to begin at 615. It breaks above that. Okay. This was about 18,500 shares. All right, something. If it was 98,500 shares, I'd be a lot happier with this break of resistance. But hey, maybe if this flips this little resistance into a little support, then there's a chance for more. Well, it tried on one candle, but then on the next candle after, it keeps nipping it, testing, and not holding this as support. And then that kind of spells the beginning of the end here for this trade. So, if it's not looking to get back up and above this, at least over time, it's just more and more likely for this to break a lower low. So it was as simple as that. I held on to it until it stopped me out for a what was it, 4 cent loss, 3 or 4 cent loss as it pulled back. I've trusted my levels, but you just realize after a certain point, if it's not making a big move shortly after, much like we talk about here in class and coaching and traders talk workshop, it's going to make a big move shortly after. I guarantee you that. We're looking for the move to be up, obviously, right? But we needed this to play nicer sooner. We needed this to flip 615 into support here sooner. The longer it takes, the writing is on the wall. You know what I mean? So if you're not risking much on the trade, and if you're not like shooting for the stars on the morning, if this isn't make or break, life or death, then I'll hold on if my level holds. Like again, just going back to SRM. Well, hey, I mean, I guess as long as this area holds, it's like you're saying, there's a chance. If you're not risking much here with your stop and your stop is right below and you're in right above and you're looking for that higher high, I'm sure, you could take a little money off the table when it's not making higher high, but as long as it's holding this as support, technically there's a chance. There's like a chance at least, right? So going back to that U trade, I just took it that way. I'm like, all right, well, if it holds over this as support, it's like, all right, there's a chance. If it's not, though, then just game over. If it's not holding this as support and then pushing above this and cooperating afterwards and playing nice like it should have done 10 minutes ago, I guarantee you it's going to make a big move shortly after, just not the move that you're looking for. So that's where I just jump back in class and I like always talk about, okay, why do we focus on stocks that have good spreads? Why do we focus on stocks that have tight spreads, big orders at a lot of these prices here? This is my level 3 at least. We'll be showing this more in our next class later on today, this afternoon. But at least it's a lot easier to trade a stock that has a tighter spread. It's a little bit easier to manage, focus on your reaction times a little bit easier. Imagine getting sucked into this, right? So, same to be said with SBET. All right, well, hey, this ended up holding resistance as support. It built a higher low. All right, well, hey, this stock has a chance to pop later on today, but right now I'm not as jumpy towards it until it could break a higher high. So even that means here coming up, kind of start with this area here, just looking back from 11 o'clock this morning. It's almost 1 o'clock now. It's been holding underneath these two lines collectively here for a bit. So the longer it could hold over that, yeah, there is a chance. There is a shot. And if it pops, great. But you're lying to yourself if you're saying that this is as easy to manage compared to, which has the good spread, the good order book, all that stuff. Even like the QUBT here, which is making as good of a move right now. It's at the highs, looks like it wants to pop more. This has an easier order book to manage, to see where the levels are, to have time to set your stop. So that's just where, even if there is like a potential chance for a breakout, with how thin the order book is here, you better make sure it does that move sooner than later. Big move shortly after. The longer it's taking, it's just not a good sign. You're playing musical chairs, and when the music stops, you better scramble to find your seat before you don't have one. All right, folks, we are going to wrap up at least here in just a moment. If you're on Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc., we cordially invite you to not just subscribe to our YouTube channel right down below, bottom left, at Cyber Trading U. Hit the red, annoying subscribe button right down below there. Look sure to follow us on YouTube, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, all of our social media streams. We stream live each and every day, Monday through Friday. Not this Thursday. Not this Thursday. We got a holiday messing things up a little bit here, Juneteenth at least. So we'll enjoy the day off, obviously. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll be back on Friday at least to wrap things up this week. But otherwise, we cordially invite you to join us inside our live trading room. So we've got members here right now: Bob, Fred, Uday, Sam, Laureen, Scott, got Charles, Anna, you got Adel, Matt, Kathleen, Mario, Dave. Got a bunch of us here, just longtime members and students here. Or even if you're a trial member right now, just testing our room out for the week. April from California, great to have you here. You got Clarence, you got Clarence from New York there as well. And a few more just joining us over time from earlier this morning. They start off tomorrow, perhaps. You could pick which day you want to begin. So if you're interested in taking our trial, joining us inside our live trading room, just make sure you go right down to the link on the scrolling blue banner below. A little alliteration there. But otherwise, ct.co/trial is the link. You can scan the QR code on the corner right to join us for our next free webinar coming up later on this week on Thursday. But otherwise here, folks, let me see. Yeah, Dave, no problem at all. I think that's Dave, if I'm not mistaken there. My apologies. I know that's one of our students there joining us on YouTube today, actually, saying thanks, Josh. No problem at all. No problem at all. Hey, folks, we're going to wrap up at least for right now. So our next audio broadcast, stay tuned right here at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll jump back on these airwaves, rescan the market heading into the close. We got our next live class at 3 o'clock as well. So for any of our students, Uday, Sam, Laureen, Scott, Leda, you have access to the Phase 1 stock course. We're going to continue our next class later on today at 3 o'clock. So that will be Introduction to Level 3. Lesson number 10 here within our course schedule. So looking forward to it, and we'll meet up later on this afternoon, folks. Talk to you all soon.